Welcome to Twists and Tales. Get ready for a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Unexpected turns, hidden secrets, and mind-blowing revelations await. Let's dive in. History 1. I always believed my marriage was built on love, trust, and honesty. For over 40 years, I never questioned my wife's loyalty. We raised children, built a home, and grew old together. But one evening, while cleaning out the attic, I found something that shattered my entire world. It was an old, dusty wooden box tucked away in the corner. Curiosity got the best of me, and I opened it. Inside were letters, hundreds of them. Some were from me, written decades ago, but others were from someone else, someone I never knew existed. My hands trembled as I unfolded the first letter. The handwriting was delicate, familiar, yet different. As I began to read, my heart pounded in my chest. My love, I miss you every day. I can't wait for the moment we can be together again. He will never know. I felt my breath catch. I skimmed through more letters, my vision blurring with every word. Some dated back 35 years. Some were more recent than I could bear to admit. I sat there, the letters spilling onto the floor, my mind racing. Who was this man? How long had this been going on? Had my entire marriage been a lie? That night, I confronted my wife. At first, she denied it, laughing off my accusations. But when I showed her the letters, her expression changed, her face paled, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. Guilt, fear, regret. She sat down, silent for what felt like an eternity. Then finally, she spoke. "It was a long time ago," she whispered. "I never meant for you to find out." Her words cut through me like a knife. A long time ago. But some of these letters were recent. I demanded the truth. And finally, it all spilled out. The affair had started in the early years of our marriage. She had fallen for another man, but she never had the courage to leave me. And so, she lived two lives, one with me and one with him. Even after his passing, she kept writing letters, as if holding on to the ghost of their love. I felt like a fool. Decades of my life had been built on a foundation of lies. Our vacations, our anniversaries, the quiet moments we shared, had they all been fake? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept reading those letters over and over, trying to understand, trying to find the moment where it all went wrong. In the morning, I made a decision. I packed a bag and left. Not forever, but long enough to breathe. Long enough to figure out what was left of my life. Some betrayals heal with time. Some leave scars too deep to ever truly fade. Would you have stayed? Would you have forgiven? Or would you have walked away from everything you ever knew? Let me know in the comments below. History 2. I never believed in fate. At least, not until the day I found the letter. It was hidden inside an old wooden box in our attic, covered in dust, tucked beneath years of forgotten memories. My wife had passed away just a year prior, and I had finally gathered the strength to sort through her belongings. I thought I knew everything about her, but I was wrong. My hands trembled as I unfolded the delicate yellowed paper. The handwriting was unmistakably hers, yet the words did not belong to the woman I thought I had spent my life with. "My love," the letter began, "every moment away from you feels like an eternity. I long for the day when we no longer have to hide." My breath caught in my throat. I read on, each word a dagger to my heart. The letter spoke of stolen moments, whispered confessions, a love that was not mine to claim. It was dated nearly 40 years ago, a time when we were already married. A part of me wanted to stop reading, to pretend I had never seen it. But the past, was demanding to be heard. The letter wasn't signed, only ending with, "Forever yours." Who was he? I searched through old boxes, scanned through faded photographs, hoping for a clue. And then I found it. Another letter, carefully folded inside a book she had once cherished. This one was from him. "My darling," it read, "I know our love is forbidden, but my heart belongs to you. No matter what happens, you are the only one I will ever truly love." I sank to the floor, overwhelmed. Had our marriage been a lie? Had she loved another man all these years, even as we built a life together? Memories flooded back, moments when she seemed distant, times when she would sit by the window, lost in thought. Was she thinking of him? I wanted to be angry. I wanted to hate her for the deception. But all I felt was sorrow. She had carried this secret to her grave, never speaking a word of it. Had she regretted it? Had she mourned a love that could never be? Days passed, but the weight of the discovery never lifted. I thought about burning the letters, pretending I had never found them. But something stopped me. This was her truth, a part of her story, even if it was one I never knew. In the following weeks, I found myself revisiting every detail of our life together. Were there signs I had missed? Moments when she hesitated before answering my questions. I even remembered a particular evening, decades ago, when she received a phone call and abruptly left the room. I had assumed it was nothing, just a friend or a relative. But now, I wasn't so sure. I started going through more of her things, finding old diaries, notes, even postcards that hinted at a life I never knew. A picture of her in Paris, taken long before we ever traveled there together. Who had taken that photo? A book with an inscription from someone named Jay. The mystery consumed me. I spent nights staring at those letters, trying to piece together a story that no longer belonged to just her. It belonged to us, or at least the version of us that I had once believed in. Eventually, I had to make a decision. Would I let this secret redefine my memories of her? Would I let it tarnish the decades we spent together? Or would I choose to remember the love we shared, despite what I now knew? In the end, I placed the letters back in the box, sealing them away. The past could not be changed. I would never know the full story, but I knew one thing for certain. I had loved her, and she had chosen to stay. And sometimes, that has to be enough. History 3. Michael never imagined that a simple home renovation would unravel a mystery buried for decades. It started when he inherited his late grandfather's house, a place filled with memories, dust, and forgotten stories. As he tore out the old wooden floorboards in the attic, something caught his eye. A small, leather-bound book, wedged between the beams. The diary was aged, its pages yellowed and brittle, but as he opened it, the handwriting was still clear. It belonged to his grandfather, a man who had rarely spoken about his past. Curiosity gripped Michael as he began to read. The first few pages were ordinary: dates, weather, mentions of wartime comrades. But then, something changed. March 12th, 1944. They said we were fighting for honor. But today, I did something that will haunt me forever. Michael's pulse quickened. He flipped to the next entry. March 14th, 1944. The mission was supposed to be simple: infiltrate a small village suspected of harboring enemies. But when we arrived, there were no soldiers, only civilians, women, children. A cold chill ran down Michael's spine. His grandfather had never spoken about his time in the war, but what he read next made his breath catch. March 15th, 1944. I followed orders. We all did. The village was burned to the ground. No survivors. I can still hear the screams. Michael's hands trembled. His grandfather had always been a hero in his eyes, a kind, loving man. But this was something else. He turned another page, dreading what he might find. April 2nd, 1944. One girl survived. She was hiding beneath the floorboards. I couldn't do it. I let her go. I told the others she was dead. If they ever find out, they'll call me a traitor. Michael exhaled sharply. His grandfather had saved someone. A rush of emotions overwhelmed him. The man he had known all his life had carried this secret to his grave. Michael needed to know more. He searched for any clue about the girl. And then, near the back of the diary, he found a single photograph, faded and torn. It was of a young girl, no older than 10, with piercing green eyes. On the back, a message was written in shaky handwriting. "Find her. Tell her I'm sorry." Michael's heart pounded. Who was she? Was she still alive? He knew what he had to do. His grandfather's past was dark, but maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance to bring closure. History 4. It was a quiet night. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes you hyper-aware of every little noise. I was sitting on my couch, scrolling through my phone, absent-mindedly watching random videos. The dim light from the screen was the only illumination in the room, casting eerie shadows across the walls. That's when it happened. Ring, ring. I frowned. The sound seemed unnaturally loud in the silence of my apartment. Glancing at the screen, I noticed something odd. No caller ID. I sighed. Probably just another spam call. I was about to decline, but then something stopped me. A strange, creeping sensation ran up my spine, a gut feeling I couldn't explain. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello?" For a moment, there was nothing. Just static. Then, a voice. "Daniel?" My breath caught in my throat. That voice. It was impossible. "Mark," I whispered. Static crackled through the line. My mind screamed that this wasn't real, that it couldn't be. Mark had died 3 years ago in a car accident. I had been at his funeral. I had seen his casket being lowered into the ground. My hands trembled as I gripped the phone tighter. "Who is this?" I demanded, my voice barely steady. A pause. Then, the voice came again, weak, distant. "Daniel, it's me. I don't have much time." I shot up from the couch, heart hammering. "This isn't funny. Who the hell is this?" The static deepened, swallowing the voice for a moment before it returned, even fainter. "Listen to me. You need to stay away from—" The call cut off. Silence. I stared at the screen in disbelief. The number was completely blank. No record of the call in my phone history, as if it had never happened. Frantically, I tried calling back, but an automated message played. "This number does not exist." A shiver ran down my spine. I sat motionless, phone still pressed against my ear, heart pounding like a war drum. What the hell had just happened? I barely slept that night, my mind running in circles. Stay away from what? Was it really Mark? Was I losing my mind? The next morning, I convinced myself it was a dream. Stress. Maybe my subconscious playing tricks on me. It had to be. What else could explain it? I went about my usual routine: coffee, shower, and getting ready for work. But the uneasy feeling wouldn't leave me. As I was about to leave, I hesitated at the door. My usual route to work involved Highway 9, but something made me pause. A voice in my head whispered, "Stay away." I shook my head, laughing bitterly. I'm really letting this mess with me. But the doubt lingered. At the last second, I took an alternative route. Halfway through my drive, my phone buzzed with a notification. A news alert. Breaking news. Massive accident on Highway 9. Multiple fatalities. My stomach dropped. Hands shaking. I pulled over to read the details. A semi-truck had lost control, plowing into several cars. The accident had occurred at 8:42 a.m., the exact time I would have been driving there. I felt sick. My head spun. No way. This is just a coincidence. Right? Desperate, I checked my call history again. Still nothing. No record of Mark's call. But deep down, I knew. Mark had saved my life. 1 week later, a week passed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. My nights were restless, plagued by nightmares of static-filled voices and shadowy figures standing outside my window. Then, the calls started again. The first one came at 2:33 a.m. The screen showed no caller ID once more. My stomach twisted, but I answered anyway. Hello? This time, there was no hesitation. A voice whispered through the static. Daniel, it's not over. My heart stopped. Who is this? The line crackled. Then, just before the call cut out, I heard one final chilling phrase. They know you heard the warning. History 5. I've lived in my house for years. I thought I knew every corner, every creaky floorboard, every draft of cold air that drifted through the hallways at night. I was wrong. It started when I decided to renovate the attic. The space had always been mostly empty, just a few old boxes, forgotten furniture, and layers of dust thick enough to write my name in. As I was moving an old heavy bookshelf, something strange caught my eye. The wooden planks on one part of the wall didn't match the rest of the attic. The color was slightly off, and the grain ran in a different direction. Curious, I tapped on it. Hollow. A chill ran down my spine. I pressed against the wood, and to my surprise, it shifted slightly. My pulse quickened as I wedged my fingers into the small gap and pulled. The panel popped loose, revealing something that shouldn't have been there. A door. There was no record of this on the house plans, no mention of a second room in the attic. The handle was rusted, the wood slightly warped, but after a few tries, I managed to force it open. A wave of cold, stale air rushed out, carrying a scent of decay. My phone's flashlight barely penetrated the darkness inside. The room was small. Dust covered everything, except for a wooden chair in the center, perfectly clean, as if someone had been sitting there just moments ago. And then I saw the walls, carvings, deep scratches in the wood, words, numbers, symbols I didn't recognize. Some looked like tally marks, dozens of them, stretching from the floor to the ceiling. I stepped closer, my heart hammering, my breath shallow as I read the words etched repeatedly across the walls. Don't let him in. The air suddenly felt heavier, like the room itself was resisting my presence. Then I heard it, a faint tap, tap, tap coming from inside the wall. I spun around, aiming my flashlight, but there was nothing, just the old wooden panels. I was about to leave, to seal the door back up and pretend I had never found it, when I noticed something else, a notebook. It sat on the floor next to the chair, untouched by dust, as if someone had placed it there recently. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The pages were yellowed, brittle, but the handwriting was clear. It was a journal. The first few pages were normal, filled with mundane details, grocery lists, reminders, notes about the weather. But as I flipped further, the entries grew unsettling. Strange noises in the walls again, whispering at night. I think I saw something in the mirror. It wasn't my reflection. Another entry. I locked the door, but he still knocks. He knows I'm here. The last entry made my stomach drop. He knocks at 3:33 a.m. If you hear it, do not open the door, no matter what he says. At that moment, a sound echoed through the attic. Tap, tap, tap. From the entrance behind me, a perfect rhythm. I turned, my breath hitched. The attic door was slightly open, but I had left it closed. And then, a whisper. "Let me in." I froze. The voice was right behind me. I spun around, expecting to see… what? A shadow? A figure? But the room was empty. My phone flickered. The battery had been at 80% when I came up here, but now it was dying fast. Then the tapping started again. Tap, tap, tap. This time, it came from inside the hidden room. The air grew colder. My breath came out in visible puffs. Then, the chair moved. Not much, just a tiny, almost imperceptible scrape against the floor. But enough. Enough to make my blood run cold. I backed toward the attic door, keeping my eyes locked on that cursed chair. My fingers fumbled for the light switch on the wall, desperate for something, anything, to break the tension. But before I could reach it, the whisper came again. Closer this time. "Let me in." And then, the attic door slammed shut. I ran. I don't remember making it down the stairs, but suddenly I was in my bedroom panting, locking the door behind me. The tapping didn't stop. All night, from the attic above me. I barely slept. By morning, I convinced myself it was just my imagination, the stress of finding something unexpected, a trick of the light. But then I checked my phone. 3:33 a.m. A missed call. No number. Just the words, "Let me in."